I'm Chase, running for president with my great friend Mel. We're both juniors, and we're really excited to have the opportunity to be running. It's been a lot of fun so far, having a lot of people helping out. So thanks for all being here.
Hello everyone, my name is Dylan Frendt. I'm a rising senior. I'm running with my good friend Courtney Cox over there. I'd like to echo what Chase said. I think this has been a really awesome experience, and it's been a really positive campaign, and I think everyone's been doing just such a great job uplifting the school community and getting people involved. So I'm happy you all turned out, even though Aaron Carter is upstairs getting ready to do his thing. So thank you so much.
First of all, I wanted to say thank you to Professor Clemens for coming to moderate this debate. I think it's going to be a really interesting one, really fun. My name is Stacey LaRiviere, and I'm running with Alicia Moore. I'm so excited. We're both juniors, and we are really looking forward to potentially being the new SA President, Vice President.
Hi, I'm John. I guess everyone got all the thank yous away, but I'm John Wu. Again, my roommate and running mate is Griffin Stevens, and this campaign has been an absolute blast. I've had a lot of fun meeting a lot of great new people and being introduced to a lot of great new ideas, and I look forward to the debate.
Great, well thank you. In the years that I've moderated the SA presidential debate, I've never heard candidates say how much fun they had, so that's good to know. Well, this is an opportunity for you to get your positions across to broader electorate represented, okay, well not quite so much in this room, but through the miracle of television. And I see the flat hat has already gotten you to commit on important positions like Harry Potter and your typical wobble order, but we will address some of the other questions that are still on the minds of students. So we'll start with sort of moving in this direction and then move in the opposite direction with the next question. And each of these questions is about a separate topic. One has to do with the student assembly, the second has to do with the budget, the third has to do with sort of subsidized services, and the last has to do with the future of the SA and changes, just to give you a sort of a hint of coming attractions. So the first question. In the past, the student assembly has been seen as somewhat remote from students' lives. As specifically as possible, how would your ticket make the student assembly more relevant to everyday life on campus? And feel free to take 2 or 3 minutes for each.
Sure. So yeah, this really gets to the heart of why myself and Mel are running. The student assembly is really viewed as either has a lot of negative connotation or kind of apathy around it, and that's really because students really don't know what the student assembly does. They really see it as just a funding mechanism, and we think we can really expand on that. A big part of our platform is bringing student organizations together. We think that we can do that directly by expanding the role of outreach on campus. So when student groups want to get together, the host events in a collaborative manner, they know who to come talk to. So we see kind of campus organizations breaking down into a lot of cultural and diversity groups, music and entertainment, sports clubs, which is traditionally not addressed by the student assembly, a number of other categories. And so within the outreach committee position and within the executive, having specific undersecretaries that address those specific groups, that they can come to them directly and have someone that they're talking to, and not just shooting an email to the student body president or someone else that who knows if they can get back to them. Another way that we can expand and make it more individualized is revamping the student assembly website. I don't know if any of you guys have had the chance to visit it, but there's really not much reason to at this point. It's just a kind of a blanket structure of what the student assembly is. We think it would become more of an interactive platform, talking to students about what's going on campus, how they can get involved, and allowing for more free flow of information. And that also opens transparency financially, and also greater communication to the graduate schools at William & Mary. That's an underappreciated aspect of the college, at least through the student assembly. They're not addressed directly on a regular basis. And they need to be heard, and we think through the website, and also a direct member of the executive department can communicate with them directly is important. And expanding student services that directly meet the needs of individuals. We have some great ideas in terms of getting students off campus and collaborating with other universities within the state of Virginia to get them to concerts and big events that are going on. So and from also the perspective of bringing in new student ideas, being more open, being people on campus who love to listen.
I think this question really gets to the heart of A, why probably all of us are running, and B, definitely why Courtney and I are running. Over the past few days, I heard a lot of students say to me that they hear nothing from Student Assembly all year, and they're a bunch of isolated people who don't reach out enough to the students, and then for these next 9 days, the students should care what Student Assembly has to say. Our faces should be plastered all over campus, and everyone should be aggressively campaigning to try to become elected and spend your student dollars and things like that. And there's this degree of, not just isolation, but there's this degree of anger and hostility. Our voter turnout rate last year was about 35%, somewhere hovering around there. I think Student Assembly needs to first open itself to all students by making the positions in the upper levels of Student Assembly open to all students. If Courtney and I become your next president or vice president, we plan on making applications for every executive position. I don't discriminate amongst the secretary positions or undersecretary or people on our personal staff. Every single executive position should have an application that is emailed to the graduate students, the undergraduate students, that is put on, like Chase said, a better website. It's more transparent, it's more open, so that people from incredibly diverse backgrounds can bring their talents, so that the Secretary of Finance can be someone who is an econ student or a business student. And we can get people who have experience with diversity coming in, not just our friends, not just people we know, not just people we surround ourselves by, but people who have that broad perspective. And that's really the key, because if we continue to surround ourselves merely by our friends and surround ourselves by the people who are soundboards for us and people who echo what we have to say, we turn the student body off. So that's the first thing that we would do. The second thing that we would do to reach out to all students is just be incredibly accessible. Courtney and I are very, very socially loud and upbeat people. I think anyone who knows me knows that I'm just a little crazy, talk a lot. We would want to set up a weekly lunch where we would say, hey, we're in Sadler, we're in the CAF, we're in the marketplace, even though I don't go there often. There's not a lot there. I'm a vegetarian, so we were at these places, even if it is the marketplace, we'll be there, and say, come sit and eat with us. Come tell us anything. And not just Student Assembly related anything, just come tell us about yourselves. Come tell us about your lives. Come tell us about what you want. Give me some crazy idea you think this school should put forward, something you think would make our campus a better place, and we're going to help make it happen for you. Because this school is filled with talented people, and we should not limit that talent. The third thing that we are going to do is on this new website that I'm going to keep echoing because I think that's important, because the website's a little slow and never loads and doesn't have relevant, updated information. We want to have a blog, and we're going to call it the What Is SA Doing For You blog. And each and every day we meet with someone in an official capacity. Each and every day we talk to a student about an idea, or we talk to an administrator, or we talk to the mayor of Williamsburg. We're going to put it on that blog. We're going to tell you where we met with them, what we talked about with them, the ideas that we came up with, and who they were. You're going to know what we're actually doing on a daily basis for you. It's not going to be this guessing game. It's not going to be this, we're an irrelevant institution. You're going to understand that you elected us to lead your student assembly. You didn't elect us to tell you what to do. You didn't elect us to keep ourselves secretive. You didn't elect us to have private meetings and go into consistent executive sessions and things of that nature. You emailed us, and you elected us to tell you everything that we do. That's what government is. That's what accountability is. That's what this school demands. This school that is such a feeder institution for people who become our leaders. So when Courtney and I are elected, we want to reach out to students because we both have a very fundamental respect for who all of you are.
Thank you. Stacey.
I really think your question really hits home at the inclusivity aspect that I think is pretty much in all of our platforms, but really Alicia and I have a very specific approach in how we want to do that, how we want to change student assembly. Internally, we want to make the organization more inclusive by having direct student interface with the secretaries. We want to have an open forum, probably bi-monthly, so we can reach out to you, so you guys can speak to us, we can hear your ideas, and make those our initiatives. And we also want to have an online forum modeled after the speakupuva.com. We're going to call it like tribeimpact.com, and basically students can post their ideas, and then other students can upvote those ideas to show us, again, where their interests lie, so we could put that into the blueprint for next year. And another thing we want to do is also have open application processes for the executive board. So again, you can bring in that fresh perspective, and we can bring in the most skilled individuals into the student assembly. And we also are hoping to institute more graduate students into the student assembly, not just at the secretary level, but at the undergraduate level, because I think the grad students have such a variety of knowledge and such a diverse base that they have that perspectives that we need. And at the external level, Alicia and I are really hoping to engage students in the community, and we want to make that a more inclusive opportunity at the local government level, specifically by getting involved in Williamsburg affairs. We want students at Neighborhood Council of Williamsburg meetings. We want students at City Council meetings, and there's an open position for City Council next year. Although Student Assembly can't promote a specific student candidate, we can let you guys know that that opportunity exists for you, and we want that student involvement at the local level because this is your home, this is your place for 4 years. And if you can make that impact and make that change at the legal level, then that really makes a difference. And community-wise, Alicia's really involved in the Office of Community Engagement, and she's done a lot with the student activities, or the students' days of service in the fall and in the spring. And we really want to continue those initiatives to continue building upon the strong relationships that we have with the Williamsburg residents. And I think that by increasing that inclusivity in the community, that we can just build a better, not just a better SA, but a better tribe and a better Williamsburg.
These are great ideas, by the way. Great ideas, Dylan. Griffin and I have the very interesting distinction that in the past session, we weren't directly involved with the Student Assembly, whereas before I was involved in the Senate. But yes, the general perception with the main student body is they have no idea what is going on with the Student Assembly. Again, with the website. If I go on the website, it is very difficult for me to find the bills and where the actual money is being allocated apart from, oh, this is the XYZ amount left in the Student Activities Reserve or the Off-Campus Reserve. So, again, building on what they were saying, Griffin and I thought of just having almost like these fireside chats where we would just be publicly available for anyone to talk to. We have to be accessible. All of these candidates have to be accessible to the students. Wherever we are, we have to constantly notify what is being done with this money. We spend the student activities fee that each of us pays in. We have to demand a right. We have a right to know what's going on with spending that money. If you pay in some investment fund and they don't tell you what's going on, it's ridiculous because you need to know what's going on. Additionally, we want to be able to have an overarching, just broader open forums. Again, we would want to do like more like a weekly thing where we can bring in actual new ideas that people can propose for the bills. Because the senators can't just be thinking of those bills themselves. They need to be bringing it in from the students. So as long as we can allow the students' voices to be heard, we can make this school a much better place.
Great, thank you. Let's move into a somewhat more specific area. A couple of you touched on it, but just questions about the budget. The budget process through which campus organizations receive their portion of student activities fee has played a prominent role in the platform of most, if not all, of the tickets represented on stage today. What do you see as the specific problem areas associated with the process, and how would you go about resolving them? And we'll start with Dylan and wrap up.
I think the first specific problem in regard to budgeting money is the fact that it's this very long, because I just reviewed it before I came here, it's a very, very long procedure. The procedure has structure, the procedure has order. Nobody knows what that procedure is besides us.
Can you hear me with it?
You know what, can you hear me without it? Are we good without it? You did?
Is it also important for that?
I can't quite hear everybody.
Okay. I'll go like this. That's awkward. I hear myself. I think the very first problem with the budgetary process is the fact that besides the people who are sitting in this room, because you're all committed to student assembly, you all, or most of you know one of us on stage, and you know what we stand for, you're here for us. The people out there they don't get the budgetary process. Actually, Kendall, like a good friend of mine, was just talking about this last night, herself as Senate chair, maybe making videos to tell the students about the budgetary process. And I thought to myself, that is such a fantastic idea, and she would be the perfect person to do it. I think we need more essay leaders from all different, whether it's in the Senate, whether it's in the executive, to make those kind of videos. Because videos are catchy, videos are fun, we have people who can edit them, to say, here is the step process for how to make the budget. This is how you go and propose what you want. These are the people you're going to go through. And that step-by-step process then becomes interactive. That step-by-step process becomes understood by the students. That's the first thing I think we could resolve with the budgetary process. The second thing, the budgetary process, the people that we put on the committee to decide the budget, we need that to be a diverse population. We need that to draw on students from business and economics. We need that to draw on students who are community service leaders. We need that to draw from every aspect. Whether you've been in a club, we need someone who's never been in a club. We just need that. We need to, I don't care if it's consistent emails and Facebook pages and the website and doing anything, even if it's me with a megaphone screaming. I want applications for people to be on the committee to help me make the budget. I don't care if I have to yell at dinner to get that done. Because we need a diverse view for that. We need enough people to be incorporated. It shouldn't just be people who understand. It shouldn't just be people who have done budgetary before. It should be people who can bring that fresh perspective, who, in the heat of a debate, who should get this amount of money, who should get that, someone who can burst everyone's bubble and say, you didn't see it like this. And give us that new, fresh perspective. Because I know at the budgetary committee, if it calls for, if there needs to be reconciliation, we create this committee between the executive and the Senate. If they can't agree on a budget, why does it have to be just between the executive and the Senate? Why can't we draw in non-essay related students into that committee? Why can't we bring more involvement out of them? So I think when we talk about the structure of finances, I don't think there's something inherently broken about the way there's proposing money, proposing applications, and it traveling itself up, presenting a formal budget. I don't think there's anything broken about the formal structure. I just think people don't know and or care about the formal structure. And that's what we need to start relaying to them, how very important it is to spend $700,000, because that's a lot of money. It's more money than I'll ever see. So I think when you ask about finances, it goes back to what we have all addressed as the core issue of our campaign. It goes back to that transparency issue. It goes back to the fact that if you are not incredibly open about what is potentially the most important aspect of our student government, making it window clear that at any moment a student can type in a few things online and see minutes from the budget meetings, see what we discuss, maybe record our meetings, videotape our meetings, have them online so they can know everything that's happening, I think that's where we fundamentally fail and we're flawed, and that's something we desperately need to work on.
Well, the budget is a very important component of the Student Assembly, and what Alicia and I plan to do at the internal level with that is create a position expressly to contact the clubs and organizations that are impacted by the budget. And that person would be in charge of keeping track of the appeals processes, and also if these organizations did not get the funding that they felt was just, that they could go to other resources on campus, because we have like a multitude of financial opportunities on campus. We have the Student Activities Fund that isn't as used as it could be, and I think that could be publicized as an option to students. But also, at the external level, we really, really, really need to publicize these information sessions, these budgetary process sessions, because a lot of clubs miss the deadlines to turning in these budgets to the EAC, and I think that with the Student Assembly being more proactive in that regard, we can really make a difference in that way. And also, I've been in talks with Brett Prestia, the Secretary of Finance, and Kendall Lorenzen, the Chair of the Senate, to really hone in on the financial process and what we want to do to change the EACs to make it also more representative. So again, that open application process is essential, because we have 400 student organizations on campus. And this year, I think the Secretary of Finance had discretion over the method of how the members of the EAC were selected. And I think that that led to a little bit of misrepresentation of all the students on campus. And by making it an application process, we can truly make this a more open experience. And I think Alicia and I are well equipped to make these changes. And we're also fiscally aware. People, like, I've been treasurer of Panhellenic, and I know how to make a budget. Alicia knows how to make a budget. We've worked with money before, and I think we have the experience and the follow-through to do this.
Thanks, John.
When it comes down to the Executive Appropriations Committee, Dylan touched on this as well as Stacey. Again, we need to be able to make it as diverse as possible and be able to reflect the students' views on how this money should be appropriated. And generally, again, this comes back down to the transparency and how exactly the budget process works. Because a lot of that appeals process is completely only known either by the treasurer of some particular organization right before the deadlines or well after the deadline. And if most students don't know how any of the budgeting works, it's going to be very difficult for just anyone normally to find out how it works. So again, that needs to be publicized into all venues, either online, through these open forums that hopefully all of us have with the students, and along with we need to be able to find a way for the Finance Committee or the Executive Appropriations to specifically state, this is how completely you should be able to grab all these funds. And so as long as we can make it completely open and transparent, it will be a lot easier for just anyone to understand how it works. Again, I don't believe, while sitting on the Finance Committee back when I was a sophomore, I didn't see it that broken. It was just when I saw representatives and friends from like CASA or BSA, they just didn't know what they were completely getting into. Generally, the treasurer was like an underclassman, sometimes an upperclassman, but even it was clear that they just prepared maybe a week or so before, maybe a couple of days before, and didn't entirely know that when they got rejected for that appeals process, how did the appeals process work? And then when they only got to this much money, let's say I needed the budget for $1,000, they didn't completely, they felt at least cut off the loop when you were budgeting. When you thought they could get a budget for $1,000 and it's cut down to $600, their entire budget is ruined, and they need to scramble for money. So I believe that the EAC and the Finance Committee needs to slowly teach all of the students who are interested in the budgeting process about how exactly it works, so everyone can know how it works.
Okay. Yeah, so the major issue that Mel and I feel facing the budgeting process with the Student Assembly is the lack of education and understanding of the process to all the student groups on campus, both at the undergraduate level and the graduate level. So there needs to be a revamp of education, the process, both externally but also internally within the Student Assembly. So that's why the way that we feel we can address that is directly having an Undersecretary of Finance for the undergraduate level that doesn't rely on student groups' leadership to come to the Student Assembly to get that information. We need to be able to reach out to them and walk them through the process so that when they're submitting their budget, they're maximizing the potential and the resources they can receive. Because what happens frequently now is a new group on campus submits their budget, the EAC, through the EAC process, the entire budget process. They'll have complete events and line items, just zero, and then they get a return to them. And for them, they think, oh, well, that's it. We're not receiving any money from the Student Assembly this year for that issue. We need to restructure that process so that we're sharing with them the information that they need to how to receive external resources for funding, or how they can restructure the event or partner with another group on campus, or use some of the other avenues of funding that the Student Assembly offers through activities and funds fund. So that means you having a direct outreach and not relying on the student groups to come to us. On the graduate side of things for financing, the Student Assembly itself needs to realize that what graduate organizations need is different from what undergraduate organizations need. There's symposiums and seminars and speakers take on a different role in media for those organizations. So we need to do a better job of including them in the process so they can get the funding that they deserve as a part of this college. The other important thing is communicating the information of how your money is being spent. When we talk about budget updates, the tens of thousands of dollars, what does that mean to the average student? It really doesn't, it's hard to comprehend. So things that can be done for better communication and through interactive ways, through videos, through the website, of really breaking down the individual $98 that you're submitting and breaking down percentage-wise on where it's going and where it's being spent. I think what's indicative of how we can get this done is our current campaign and our media outreach. Though our creative ways to bring students together and share information, I think that shows a pretty good, strong indication that we can get done what we're talking about. So really educating the student body and the student organizations how the budget process works is how we're going to fix the Student Assembly's budget process.
Great, thank you. The third question also has to do with money. Several campaigns have discussed expanding free or subsidized services in their platforms. Understanding that the budget is fundamentally limited in size, how would each ticket prioritize student services with campus organization funding? We'll start with Stacey.
For Alicia and I, there are three components to the budget, and two of them really take top priority for us. So that would be funding to the clubs and organizations, and then funding for these student services. Really this year, STI funding and flu shots were like a very big component of the student services that the SI provided, and Alicia and I really want to make the STIs a subsidized program because it is very expensive, but we also want to make sure that we don't run out those tests because they are really expensive. Like in the real world, STI test is $35, and we're proposing to reducing that rate to under $10 for each student, so we can make it accessible and then to each student, and we can also make sure that those students who do come to the health center don't get turned away, because it's hard for students to come to the health center on their own and be turned away. That's just a horrifying experience, and we don't want that to happen again. And we're not placing any blame on anyone, because all the finance situations are very complex and very confusing. We just hope to have more oversight over that next year, and that's what Alicia and I propose to do.
Yeah, building on with that STI funding, I remember reading an article back then. There were a lot of grumbles with the student population when it was a ridiculous amount of $17,000, and then at the halfway point, left over is around $2,000 left. And then there was some study done that generally was a very small minority of students who are utilizing the STI testing week in and week out. I believe that if we had an open forum asking students about how this STI funding would necessarily be used, I don't think most students would completely agree with these kinds of subsidies if they're used by only this select few amount of students. Mind you, I completely agree with, we need to have some sort of just health awareness with STI or maybe condom usage with students, but if the same number of students are using that kind of funding week in and week out, they're essentially taking advantage of our other students' funds. And that came back with the flu shots. Flu shots, at least to me, are completely more useful for everyone on the student body rather than STI funding. And I think it was great that we had all those free flu shots, but when some of that funding was cut off, we had like these leftover flu shots at the health center, and then there was no money for STI testing, and then people got turned away from the health center. It was sort of a fiasco right there. I mean, I won't blame anyone, because I'm sure everyone worked really, really hard for that. But there needs to be a complete rethinking about the way we think about those kinds of subsidies. With the STI testing, I believe that it could have been done a little better route if everyone was asked, should we continue to subsidize these STI tests, because they're very, very expensive. Like the Gardasil shots were a ridiculous amount of money for, I think it was like 11 shots for a couple thousand, I think it was a couple thousand. So just again, this comes back to transparency, what Griffin and I want. We want to be able to be completely accessible and ask the students, do you want to continue this? Should we continue using the money to spend this amount of STI funding? Like we found that not enough, a very select few students are continually utilizing this. And if students were more aware of that, I don't think that they would completely agree with continuing it, or at least continuing it to this scale. So we want to be able to, again, create more open forums for the students to be able to be completely aware of how that money is being spent and whether or not we should continue to spend it.
Okay.
So yeah, the two main issues that we find is obviously funding student organizations on campus, and then having sustainable means of continuing student services. Those student services, the main ones that are really important to us, are obviously STI testing, flu shots, tribe rides is really important to us in addressing issues of mental health on campus. Currently there's a limitation on the number of on-campus visits you can do to the mental health counselors, so providing means for students to get off campus through tribal rights is really important to us. And so we find that, I think probably the most financially sustainable means of accomplishing that is through subsidizing these services. Provide that way we can provide the most opportunity for as many students on campus so the funds aren't being depleted too quickly. And it's also the financially responsible thing to do. And that way we can even expand these services to make sure that all the needs, and if new ideas come up for student services, those can be addressed and met with the importance that they deserve. And then in terms of addressing the finite resources we have in terms of student organizations and clubs, is the Student Assembly can really do a better job of seeing where connections can be made with student groups on campus, seeing where they can work together and support through Student Assembly to co-host events to maximize the resources that they're receiving. And so we think the Student Assembly can do that through subsidized student services that allow for expansion of current, but also introduction of new services
connecting student groups to host co-host events. And, that's how we address the issue of a limited number of resources, but still maximizing opportunities for students on campus.
For Courtney and I, the priority is the funding of student organizations, because as much as we like to laud our strengths, I think everyone should be able to talk about their weaknesses and things that they are not capable of doing. I do not pretend that I can plan every organization's event on this campus. I do not pretend to be the most creative individual in the world. I do not pretend that I have that infinite capability to just bang out ideas and get it done. The student organizations on this campus are tremendous, and they're dedicated, and they come up with these ideas, and at law schools, symposium, just at a symposium, and these events, and these things that are just so groundbreaking, and they unite so many people. They need more money to do that. We don't believe in that micromanagement. That's something that I don't know if anyone should believe in, micromanaging from we look down at this level and say, you're going to do this. No, they need to have that tremendous ability to have more money. So that's number one priority, and I think that's something we've all echoed, and I respect that for all the candidates up here. When it comes to subsidies, the two that really stick out to me, and of course we'd be willing to more subsidies, the STI testing and the tribe rides. I spent my last year working with a lot of kids, underprivileged kids at this is a little personal anecdote. This is very important to me. We worked with underprivileged kids, getting the grades up, getting them off the streets and on the honor roll, and we had this limitation where we could not drive them home because there were laws blocking it. They sometimes walk home. One girl walked home with a butter knife because she thought she was going to get mugged. And this tribe ride program, taking people in this really fragile state where they need this help, this is something that, without question, needs to be subsidized by us to a great degree. Without question, this is one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard of a student assembly coming up with, sending people. So that is something that I would never allow to be on the chopping block, ever. It would never happen. When it comes to the STI testing, I do echo the worry that John brought up with certain students taking advantage of the testing, and certain students, if the money was being spent by a small pool of people, and then, there's this management, this breakdown. I want to say on a personal level that I disagree with doing that, but then at the same time, who am I to limit services to students on campus? I do understand, and I echo the concerns of people who say a small group of people should not take advantage of a portion of money, and I get that, but at the same time, we need to continue a subsidy. Maybe if it's at the 50% level, we pay half, you pay half. We would sit down and come up with an appropriate percent. We talk to people who work in health, who know more about this than us, who can do the numbers better than us. But when we come up with that percent, that's something that needs to hold. Because I don't believe, even if I personally don't think students should be taking advantage of a system like that, I don't prescribe my moral views upon others, and I can't be walking around telling people how to conduct themselves. So when it comes to that, the level of subsidy that it's at right now, I think a good 50% subsidy for the STI testing and the maintaining of the tribe rides, I think that's a very fair and very balanced approach. And I'm glad all the other candidates on stage think those are things that take priority because they're very important for our campus.
Great. The last preset question here, we'll start with John, is allows you to think a little bit about the future of the essay. Each ticket brings with it a different perspective on how the student assembly should be changed over the coming year, and both in terms of how it works and what it does. So think about it broadly. What do you see as the most important issues in that respect, and why?
Well, again, it comes down to transparency. We need to be able to tell the student body what we're doing, when we're doing it, and always immediately. Students need to be able to keep up with current updates of whatever is going on. So if it comes down to simple bills being that are in the Senate, everyone on campus should know the Senate just passed this, or the Senate is going into deliberations about this. With the budget process, the entire campus should know, oh, the budget process is going on. Now the appeals process is going on. Everyone should know when and what part the school is doing, whether the undergrad council or anything else. But I want to touch on the undergraduate council. The undergraduate council really needs to be reformed. It's made up of these students that are elected, and then they're given like a budget, just like any other organization, almost like the IR club, but they're an elected body of students. It never really made sense when I was on the Senate that the undergrad council was almost treated like a club, almost. They're an organization that, trying to raise money for the class of 2015, 2016, 2013, 2014. But they're almost treated like a club, and when I was in the Senate, there was almost like this, treatment of them, like they were almost like the little sister or cousin. And I've been hearing rumors that there's maybe a proposal, not a bill yet, but people are thinking about axing the undergraduate council. I don't think that's the case at all. It should be reformed in the sense that maybe we don't necessarily need to give them a budget, but we need to give them more power. They're too underutilized for what they can do. If they're given a budget and they can only use that budget and then the next group of students come in, they're restricted by the general just budgeting needs. So they need to find a way to have an active pool of money to be able to better serve the students. And so I wish that there could be, at least if I'm elected, and if Griffin and I are elected, we plan to utilize the undergraduate council to a much larger level. And then this goes back to just the transparency. People need to know what the undergraduate council is doing or what the student assembly is doing. So again, just more transparency. The student body should just know what is going on at all times.
Thanks. So Mel and I, one of the things that we find is the biggest change that needs to happen in the student assembly is to create a more of a collaborative body. And that comes from a couple different angles. Bringing student organizations together to co-host big events on campus. We have ideas for a World Fair to highlight our campus's commitment to service. Service days or service projects that are campus-wide that can be brought in, bring groups together around a single idea. Having the student assembly website being something that can really bring students together. But an example, a specific example of how this collaboration can take place, I think, is brought up an issue of mental health. We, as Mel and I, potentially see a lot of collaboration to be done on that and expanding the dialogue about mental health on campus. It's something that's very important to the college and to its students. And we think that needs to happen in a couple areas. Continuing the work, working with the administration to open up dialogue on campus, hosting events, maybe potentially a mental health week. And actually, with the new Dean of Students, Dean Thomas, I've had the opportunity to speak with her on some of her ideas for mental health and how she can be, and the administration as a whole, can be more of a figure on campus and addressing the issues and be more of a means of connection and a resource for students on campus specifically with this. The other way that we feel like we can address this is, and the idea of collaboration is expanding student services in terms of services for transportation off campus. We feel that our college is a very intense environment, and so any opportunity for students to de-stress and get off campus. And we see that as days in DC, days in Richmond, when really partnering with other student governments and universities around the state of Virginia to get students off campus. Transportation to ODU, UVA, especially highlight times when there's large events going on their campuses, such as concerts or various activities like that, that can kind of be a practical means of addressing mental health in a manner that's still a collaborative manner, getting students to come together for events off campus as well. Bringing students together is something both from, we've talked about the external aspect of it, but internally within the student assembly comes from opening positions up to application process, which is something Mel and I feel very strongly about, getting many student opinions as possible. And being the people that are open to listen to ideas and being very approachable.
I think your question, what's the future of student assembly? It's a very broad question, but if I could put it the best, we all have our campaign slogans up here. We all say what we're going to do, what we're going to change. And Courtney and I, in our talking with students, always say that at the core of what we do, it's making student assembly work for you. So if you ask me directly, what do I see as the future of student assembly? It's changing that word, you, who that word is, who the student assembly serves. Because right now, when students, lots and lots and lots of students that I've talked to, not just in the select few, when the broad range of students hear what student assembly is and they think about it and they discuss it. If they can define it, if we get over that hurdle, if they can tell me what the student assembly is, their concerns are that student assembly is isolated and serves a very small sliver of the population and focuses its time and its resources and its dedication to a small subset of the population, and it is not representative of the people. It's representative of the people who are sitting in this room and the people who are involved in other things that are close to student assembly, people who are current friends of people in the Senate or the administration, and that is wrong. That is unacceptable. And it's something that should not be allowed to continue. That word "you" is a fundamental part. Make student assembly, and it's that word "you." We need to change the way the student assembly works because it should work for everybody. It should reach out to students who have never voted before because they never felt empowered enough to vote before. It should utilize all of these candidates, because it doesn't matter if I'm elected, these candidates have wonderful ideas that I would call them to help me with because they're very dedicated and very intelligent, and I would need them. I think I would need them, I would need the people in this audience, but I would need that fresh perspective. Because we all do. Because we all know each other, but we need to reach out to the kid, who sits on their Tumblr and is talking about William and Mary and how they're in sweat and they can't take it anymore. You need to reach across and say, hey, what do you think we can do to help you? What can we do to make your experience any better? What can student assembly do? Or reach the freshmen who say, why do I have to have this mandatory meal plan and have a really bad housing selection and I have the last of the class? Well, when I say to them, student assembly can't make those woes go away. You're always, you're going to get bad class selections. You're not going to get good housing laws. But we can stand up for you. You're that forgotten class as the rising sophomores. We can reach out to them and say, hey, if you have an idea for us, we're gonna go gung-ho with it. We're gonna stand up for you, and we're gonna give you the resources that you need. We need to identify these groups of people on campus who aren't voting, who aren't caring, who feel like they're disillusioned. We need to identify them, and we need to change our perception of how we do business. As a general term, in a very general, broad way, when I think of student assembly in the future, especially under Courtney and I as vice president and president, I see a student assembly with 2 leaders and people surrounded by those leaders who just consistently will speak with students, will speak with administrators, will sit everybody down and listen to a whole host of opinions, make them known to the public, and work with the best things that we have. And that's what student assembly should be in the future, no matter who wins this election.
I think Alicia and I really are going to focus on the internal and external changes that I brought up at the beginning, and the major driving force behind those changes is inclusivity. I know you hear that word thrown around a lot by all of us, by all of our campaigns, but I really brought up specific ideas so that we can get things done. And at an individual level, I think Alicia and I come from very different parts of campus. We're involved in very different things. Alicia's a HOPE member, so she knows a lot about mental health and STI funding, so she can speak more to that. She's involved with AMP, so we can strengthen that partnership. She's involved in OCE, which will help with the community engagement level. And for me, I'm a very public affairs person, Secretary of Public Affairs, and I come from the Greek community, so I can speak to that voice. And I also am a government major and pre-law person, so I think we have a very diverse set of skill sets. And we have a very diverse group of students that we can represent. And through our experiences within the Student Assembly, I think we are the most experienced ticket. So we have that internal knowledge and we know what works. So we can really deliver on what our campaign promises are. Like, we can make the Student Assembly more inclusive by having these open forums with the secretaries directly in contact with students, by having the tribevoices.org that is modeled after the Speak Up UVA with your direct impact, by having graduate students sitting on the executive board and in undersecretary capacities. And at that external level, Alicia is very involved with OCE. She's going to bring such a wonderful skill set and vibrancy to this ticket. I think that we really have the managerial skill sets, the experience, and the dedication and passion to really follow through on what we promise. And we can make the Student Assembly inclusive.
Thanks to all 4 of you for very substantive and concise answers to all the questions, and thank you for your commitment to the Student Assembly. I'm going to open it to the audience for some very concise, open-ended questions for all of the candidates up there. So if you have a question, I'll turn it over to TJ here.
Why don't we limit answers on these to a minute and a half, and I'll give you guys a sense of that. So if anybody has any questions, this can be pretty informal. You can direct them to one person or to everybody. Jake?
Cool. Okay, so you guys talked a lot about outreach efforts and town-gown relations, and we're lucky enough to have the Secretary of Outreach and the Secretary of Public Affairs on stage today. And we have 2 students who are obviously interested in these issues as well. So my question is for Chase and Stacey. What have you guys done specifically in your roles for outreach and public affairs recently? And then for Dylan and John, I guess, what have you heard that you've liked? And in addition to that, what would you do to build on the successes that Chase and Stacey have already set up in their roles as outreach and public affairs secretaries this year?
Right. Great question, Jake. So public affairs is really about outreach. And what we've already done this year is we have a constant student representative at city council meetings and at neighborhood council Williamsburg meetings. So your voices are already heard. Like, he's actually sitting in the audience right now, Scott. And we also are having a Williamsburg Affairs Session 101 forum later on in the semester, so we can advertise opportunities for students to get involved in Williamsburg, so they can be more brought into the community that they live in. Oh, we also, voter registration is a huge part, I think, of outreach, and I think we have done an excellent job this year, especially with Zach Woodward. He is a rock star at all that he does, and I think that's a huge component of getting students involved and making sure that by registering here in Williamsburg and by voting here, you can make an impact at the local level, and that can change the course of your life here for these 4 years or beyond if you want to stay for grad school or a master's program.
Yeah, so for outreach, for ICE, my role has been in being involved with students for the last number of years since freshman year in Senate. It's really come to outreach on campus. And so a lot of it's primarily been working with the Senate Committee on Outreach, working with their What Can the SA Do For You campaign, and really trying to expand and get more students' input involved into the student assembly process and the ideas, so the ideas are flowing and action can be taken on those. It's also come down to helping work with student groups to get involved in some of the larger campus events such as Charter Day. But I think what the probably most important thing that my role in Student Assembly has, my perspective from that has been kind of seeing where the Student Assembly can be improved and expand on the positions that currently exist. I think, you can't really just have one individual, working with all the student organizations on campus, and I think having more people that can be responsible and responsive to organizations on campus, so that when a group wants to come with an idea, they have someone that knows exactly what they need. They can come to them directly as opposed to kind of a do-it-all person. We need to spread the responsibility and have more individuals in the Student Assembly Executive that understand the issues that face student groups. So that's been a perspective that I've been able to gain through my involvement in the Student Assembly and seeing where improvements can be made. And I think that's something Mel and I are ready to do.
I think in regards to what has been going well with outreach, I would first of all love to say the voter registration and Zach Woodward and his aggressive campaign was just absolutely astounding. I can't even tell you how many times he'd see me and I can't get that look. It's like, you need to register, and I freeze up for that moment because I'm like, I'm from Pennsylvania, it's like, I don't care. And just the voter turnout rate was just so astounding. So I think that was just such a beautiful success. And also in regards to outreach and by being public, the videos that have been coming out, such as the videos talking about failure and videos reaching out to students in that regard, they've been really great. They're greatly edited. They have a message that hit home. Taylor Reeve failed. We all found that out. That was a very, very, very good. That was a very good approach. So those two things I want to cite as two things that definitely that I felt were personally fantastic. In regards to outreach with Williamsburg, I'm fortunate enough that I live in Brown, so I live right off of Colonial Williamsburg, and I get to see all the happenings that go on in Williamsburg. And I was talking recently to the woman and man who put on the craft show that tons and tons and tons of people come to. It's right by Aromas, and the people who put on the farmers market, which a lot of people go to from Williamsburg. And I asked them, would it be possible if the students groups like the Ruritan, who had a craft fair here last semester that I was working for, if they could go to that craft fair and be a part of that. And I said, what about the environmental kids on campus? I asked for the people who put on the farmers market, would it be okay if maybe they came and gave information to the community about being sustainable? And they also said that that was okay. So I think those are very two concrete examples on how we can reach out in very public forums and get our students' voices heard in our community.
I would also like to commend the voter registration. I thought, at least personally, I didn't register to vote until I really saw all of that being completely drugged, and that I just convinced all of my friends to just vote, because that's the only way to get our voice heard at all within the local government. And we can continually complain about these city-college relationships, but we don't even bother to try to vote for any of our elected representatives. There's absolutely no way that we can have our voice be heard at any level. One thing that Griffin and I want to propose is that as part of the class, and I just did it on my own volition when Griffin convinced me to. These open ride-alongs with the Williamsburg Police Department, they're absolutely great. They're really fun. Over a period of time, Griffin had written in just a ride-along, and he was able to just understand like how the police system works, how these noise violations work. Because previously I got noise violations for my house, but I was able to win because I understood how the city ordinance worked, and I also spoke with a personal officer that I made a friend with these ride-alongs. So as long as we can just be able to create these open accessibilities with the students and then parts of the city, it will work very well to soothing those kinds of relationships.
Sean?
Two quick questions, both for Dylan. So kind. They're also unrelated, so sorry for that.
That's okay.
First and foremost, forgive me if I misunderstood you, but it sounded like you wanted to turn Tribe Rides into more of like a program which I think you mentioned, taking kids home from school and other such things like that. And is that not what you're getting at?
No.
Yeah, so was that unrelated to what?
Yes.
Yes, it just happened that they were.
No, I didn't get my just come out that way. Yeah,
Okay.
No, definitely keeping it the way it is now.
Keeping it the way it is. All right, fantastic. That would be a very expensive program.
Exactly. I know all about that. I know about transportation.
And then I guess more importantly for me, I've been in Senate this year. I've seen the general student apathy regarding student assembly, and I see how difficult it is to fill even the 4 Senate spots per class, the undergraduate council. The executive usually has fairly good representation. That's because they're appointed positions. How do you foresee, do you really expect that every single executive position, you're looking at dozens of secretaries and undersecretaries, do you really think those positions will all be applied for? Do you think they'll be competitive processes? Because are you prepared to have to acknowledge the entire student body? No one applied for this position, so I have to appoint somebody. Because that would make you look bad, that would make the executive look bad, that would make the entire process look bad. And are you prepared to deal with that?
The simple answer to your question is yes. I don't believe in publicity and making myself look better for the sake of anything. If it comes to a point where there are positions that people don't apply for because, for whatever reason, because we can't foresee these reasons, the simple answer is I would have to acknowledge that these are the positions that we're applying for. These are how many applicants we had. This is our open process and how we discuss those applicants and what we prioritize and how we made our decision. But here are the positions that people didn't apply for. We give them an extended period to apply for those positions. We give them complete and free information. Someone from the Flat had asked me this very question, because my campaign centers on the student apathy and trying to outreach. They said, what if the students just genuinely get that information and are still apathetic, right? And that's a fair question. Because as long as student assembly is utilizing and exhausting every single resource it has to incorporate every student, and that student chooses not to be involved, makes that informed decision, because that's the key, an informed decision. I can't force anyone to do anything. So to directly answer your question, I would acknowledge it, because honesty is paramount to who I am as a human being, and it should be to who everybody is as a human being. And to me, I don't think it would be a complete derailing scar on the face of me. And other people do, that's their professional opinion, that's their personal opinion, they have every right to think it. But yes, I would be honest, because I just think that's the best policy, that's how I was raised.
Colin.
Thanks, DJ. This is a general question for all the candidates. First, how would you guys, the president role is a very time-consuming commitment. How would you kind of balance all your time commitments? And specifically for Dylan, since you already hold one elected position on Undergraduate Honor Council, would you then advocate? And if so, which organization is more important, the Undergraduate Honor Council or the Student Assembly?
I was waiting for that question too. I knew that was coming, don't worry. First of all, when it comes to your general question, I'll speak to that first, involving all of us. I'm very good at scheduling what I do. I'm in 19 credits right now. The fact that I'm sitting on the stage, able to campaign, and I'm not fall over exhausted is, I think, a testament to the fact that I have to. I have no choice. I have to know how to schedule everything. I have to understand, without consulting my phone or a book, I have to know exactly where I'm supposed to be at all times, and I have to be driven if that means getting rid of Facebook or suspending it when I have an exam, those little things, So when it comes to time management, I can speak strongly to my skills on time management and prioritizing, and that is essential. When you're put in this position, you have to learn. It's either you do or die, right? So generally speaking, that's how I'll answer your general question. When it comes to the specific question, I don't think it's a fair question to ask which institution is more important. I think they fill separate roles that are equally as essential to our campus. I don't think that's a fair thing. That's almost confrontational, right? You're trying to set up a question where we're pitting one against each other. I don't mind that. I think they're both equally as important and they're both equally as essential. However, to be completely frank with you, I talked to Erin Hills, who is a friend of mine, and she's the chair and on the Elections Commission, and I did let her know that if I did get elected, I would serve in my capacity on the Undergraduate Honor Council until the first day of classes next year, and give them that ample time to fill the position through election, letting them know that on that day, my resignation would take effect because I would help them plan orientation because I'm the orientation chair. I would help them get students involved over the summer. I would maintain that if they needed to do summer work, I would be there to do that. I plan on being here. So, to answer your question, honestly, if elected, I would be forced to resign, but not because I prioritize one over the other. I really think this job requires such a dedication and time commitment that it would be unfair to continue to be in the Honor Council.
So, yeah, I guess to the broader question of how to prioritize and go about the role of being the SA president. For myself and Mal, it really comes down to our partnership and friendship and the way that we've kind of even begun to run this campaign. To us, we would be able to divide the roles and responsibilities between us. I wouldn't view it as, me being higher than her or anybody else within the cabinet for that, quite frankly, because that's going to be important to be able to get everything that's done and being able to accomplish all the goals that we have and that the students have for us and that they come with us. Come to us with. So, being able to divvy up the roles and kind of overseeing specific areas within the student assembly is really important to us. But also, expanding and having, again, a more inclusive process, we can, again, kind of spread the responsibilities that we're still having a lot of oversight, making sure that things are getting accomplished and still be the two individuals that are making sure things get done, and if they don't, then that falls on us. But really working close with that. And we think, the way that our campaign's going so far and, having so much help in it being a really fun process, we don't see why that can't continue into the potentially into the next year and throughout, and just continuing to build on where we've started.
Okay. Well, regarding your question, Colin, I think Alicia and I will definitely have the time next year to dedicate to the Student Assembly. We're both very involved in organizations on campus, but we definitely have the time management skills that is necessary for the position. And we talked to Kurt, we talked to Melanie, so we know what those expectations are. And we've been on cabinet, so we see how busy they are, what kind of meetings they have to go to, the collaborations that they have, the partnerships that they make. So at that experiential level, Alicia and I know what it takes. And we have the capacity to do that. And I think we also have really complementary leadership styles. So we work together really well. We actually sit beside each other in cabinet, and I think our personalities mesh really well. And beyond that, I think we have really good skill sets. We both participated in the Student Leadership Foundation, so we really know what it means to be an inclusive leader. And we also want to rely on our cabinet and be able to delegate effectively the roles and the tasks that each secretary should have. And so we're hoping to train all the student assemblies, so that's including the 3 branches, the Senate, the executive, as well as the undergraduate council. We want to implement the training leadership program for all of them so that they know what it means to be a leader and that they can have those skill sets to effectively comply with the demands of their position.
Obviously, Griffin and I have, we've lived together since freshman year, being freshman year roommates, and with the time management skills, I completely understand that I need to be able to devote 40 plus hours a week to this position. As you are the president of the student assembly or vice president of the student assembly, you need to devote everything you have to this school. So I'm completely willing to eventually resign if I were to be elected at particular times as president of my own fraternity and downgrade the number of hours that I put in the chemistry lab. Back to the original thing, I think Griffin and I are completely well prepared for the excessive demand on our time because we love William & Mary. We want to get everything that we can to make it better because we think we can make it better. We know better.
All right, I know that folks are eager for Aaron Carter, but why don't we fit in one more question? Wallace?
So you guys have, touched upon many issues, outreach, just transparency. And all of you have phenomenal ideas, just great ideas. But we've heard these ideas before. We've heard them, last year when we were here, 2 years ago, 3 years ago as a senior. This is the exact same stuff we've been here. So I don't necessarily want to know what separates you from the candidates you're sitting next to, but what separates you from the candidates that were there last year, that were there 2 years ago? What makes you different, not now, but compared to everybody that has held that position? And how are you better prepared to handle these issues that you have brushed upon?
Well, Griffin and I, again, what differentiates us, I guess, in a little bit is we weren't part of that current student assembly establishment. Not saying that SA right now is not doing their job. They're doing a pretty good job. But Griffin and I, the reason why we just a couple months ago decided to run is that we know that we can push, because we're convicted to change parts of this school, because there are so many aspects of the school that could need so much more help. And we just found it ridiculous that there are certain things that just weren't being done with the STF funding, where it's sort of a little bit of a mishap there, and then in the budget process people just don't know. We need to be able to teach the school what's going on. And so, again, what differentiates us from those other past candidates is that our convictions to change the school. Because the school can be so great compared to those other state schools here, and then we just want to be able to help that.
I think Kurt and Melanie have done an excellent job this year in leading the student assembly in a very effective fashion. And I think what Alicia and I will do differently is just build upon and expand upon what they've already done. And the new ideas that we're bringing up is like what I talked about earlier today with regard to our platform, with that inclusive component. Because right now I think that while both of them bring different aspects to the management of the student assembly, I think Alicia and I could make it a more representative organization. And I know you keep hearing that again and again and again, but honestly, that is the most important thing. The student assembly, the purpose of the student assembly is to serve you, to serve your interests. And I think that Alicia and I have shown you guys that we're willing to have meetings with everyone. Like this week, I think we've met with over 15 people to talk about our platform. We met with like John Pacaglia and Nishan to talk about Greek life issues. We talked to Mike Schilling to talk about RHA initiatives. We talked to Kendall. We talked to Brett to really hone in on our finance capabilities. So we're willing to have those meetings. We're willing to do that. We're willing to work with other organizations and really forge those partnerships that are so vital to strengthening our community. Because right now, I think the Student Assembly could do a lot to engage the 400 student organizations on campus. Like Alicia and I really want to make a strong partnership with AMP and OCE specifically, because I think we already have a lot of intersect in what we already do. So if we made those relationships better and more positive, then I think we can be more effective in trying to provide the best services to the student body.
As a transfer, I can only comment on Kurt and Mel because they're the only president and vice president that I have had the fortune of knowing, and that I know from Dylan, he used to, my fiance in the audience, he used to send me stuff that Kaveh would do. So like I have a bit of a background in that. But I think what sets me apart, I think it's a really good question, because that is something that is frustrating, especially the people I've been talking to. They've been saying, we hear the same stuff every year, and we only hear it for 9 days, and the student assembly disappears again. We get these people using the same buzzwords and expect us to care. So I think that is a really critical question. I think the one thing that I have to offer, as opposed to those who come before me, is the fact that I am a very universally accessible person. On stage now, this is a debate forum, and we have a microphone, and we're looking down at all of you and coming up with our logical answers and trying to appeal to the camera, to see what should we say the best so people vote for us. But at the end of the day, who I am as a person is someone who's willing to sit down, and not just with leaders of organizations, or sit down with people who are involved, and sit down with the people who already know what's going on. It's the ability to sit down with anybody, absolutely anybody. I don't care who it is. I will sit down with people, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, no matter what their ideas are, because that's the only way that you can substantively and truthfully get the job done. You need to hear all points of view. You need to hear the dissent, you need to hear the support, you need to hear people who are apathetic, you need to hear these important issues. I'm just a very, 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 very open person. And that's not to say that those before me haven't been open. I just tend to think myself as excessively open and willing to talk to anyone, even if it's talking to a kid who left on medical leave recently at 4 in the morning and waiting until his taxi got there to take him to the airport. If that's what it takes to be open to people, that's what I'm willing to do.
For myself and Mel, what it comes down to us is why we feel like we can accomplish a lot of the things that we're setting out to do is one is to have a perfect balance of experience but also new ideas and different networks of people on campus and groups of peers and friends that really have the skills and the knowledge that we don't personally have as two individuals. And I think one of the first things that why we can get this done is that we realize from the get-go that we can't accomplish everything that we want to do by ourselves. And so through this transparency initiatives that we talk about, it's really making sure that we're accountable for these ideas and that if something's not getting done that we said we were going to do, that we're directly able to be responsible for that, and the students can come to us and say, hey, you're not getting this done. And so that's why then from there we can go on and map out how we can accomplish that by taking a different track. Whether that's pulling in different, new students with different ideas or different knowledge sets on how to get that done. It's just, for us, it really comes down to being accountable, but also being able to access a lot of different networks on campus, working with the administration, building off prior experiences with them, but really just being accountable and making sure that if an idea is not happening the way that we set it out to be, or that the way the students don't want it to be, that we can make the change and make that change happen.
Okay, I'm going to give everybody a 60-second closing statement, just to sort of wrap things up, and we'll sort of mix the order up, and we'll go from Stacey to Chase to Dylan to John.
What I really want you all to consider this Thursday is our platform. I think Alicia and I really have strong ideas. If you look at our website, you can really see that we have a specific approach. We don't have these general ideas without a way to attack it. We have specific items that we are planning on getting done. And I think with our skill sets, with our experience, we have that capacity to lead. And I think we also are really personally invested in the student body here at William & Mary. We both have the same William & Mary love story. I mean, I came here when I was a little girl, and I have pictures of myself in my room with my twin sister and my brother, who are all members of the tribe now. Yay! We were wearing these giant colonial bonnets wandering around Colonial Williamsburg, and it was just the funniest thing. And I remember going on my first tour here and kind of like bawling in the middle of campus because I'm like, this is the place that I feel like I fit. And I think Alicia has that same story. She's been going here since she was little to attend summer school and like all these interesting programs that she did, like educational and academic programs. And I think we really have students' interests at heart. We love this place. We love these students. And I think with the heart and the mindset and the skill sets and the experience that we can really get things done. We can and we will go forth and lead.
So for myself and Mel, I think we have an unquestionable passion for the college, like all students do at the campus for the most part. And one of the things that, the things that really matter to us is creating a more open student assembly, changing its role and in the way the students view it, from just like a purely financial mechanism to a collaborative organization. And we think that we're the people to do that. We think we're two very open individuals. We love to listen, and we're ready to listen to bring more people involved in the process, but also change student assembly to be more advocates for the students, working with the administration, but also with the city. And we're two individuals that are ready to challenge the administration, the city, when the students feel that that's what they need. So we're two open people ready to listen. We have ideas that we'd love for you guys to check out at our platform and our website, and we're ready to go.
I came to this school to be with a person that I love, very simply, and I'll honestly say that. That's why I came here. And I ended up falling in love with the school more in a way that I never thought I would, and I can speak for Courtney in that regard, that the both of us came here with super high expectations, and then they were exceeded tenfold. And we've developed a deep love for the people here, and a deep respect for the people here. And being on the outside and getting to listen to all students and having to start new and come in with the freshmen and take that pledge, but at the same time having that social responsibility of being a junior, that academic pressure, needing to know where you're going to go and things of that nature, that gives us a unique opportunity. That gives us the ability to see past the insulation of what student assembly currently is, and see past the way things currently work to challenge every single aspect of it. To know that we can bring that outside experience, and not just lofty goals, because everyone has lofty goals, but specific line items, much like Stacey referenced, that we want to get done. Specific plans of attack with specific ways to get these accomplish our goals. I think that our passion and I think that our love for this place and our standing on the outside looking in and having to learn the way everything works and wanting to reach in and make a change, I think it speaks volumes. And I think if you are all considering who you want to vote for on March 21st, I think you should give us a second look and consider us serious candidates because we really want to make a change.
Griffin and I, while we weren't completely involved in student assembly except for me, as outside observers, again, we know what we feel like with our variety of organizations that we've been involved in. We know what the student body really wants. And again, we want to make the SA transparent. We want to know how all the students should know how the executive, the Senate, the undergraduate council works. Most students don't even know what the undergraduate council's purpose is. And with we want to just basically push open transparency and let the voices of the student body be heard, because it's ridiculous that with the student activities fee, if you pay in, you should know what your money's going. So we want to be completely open and accessible for all the students to know what's going on with their money. And so that's what Griffin and I want for the student body.
Great. Thank you all for very constructive comments and for your commitment. And best of luck to all of you. Whichever one wins, I'm sure will have the support of the other three in making next year a fantastic year for the college. So thank you all.